Hello, art lovers, and welcome back to Figure Study, where we appreciate the form in Transformers. Today, I'm taking a look at a piece that I'm really excited about. I was actually really tempted to start with him, but I really wanted to save him for last because he is just so cool all across the board. I am, of course, talking about Revenge of the Fallen, Voyager class, Mixmaster. He is the last of the Constructicons that I own at the moment, so unfortunately I won't be able to do a video like this on long haul anytime soon. But if that changes, I'll definitely add him to the list because I think talking about all the Constructicons is important. Anyway, getting to Mixmaster here, he is a cement truck, as is normally the case, but he is even like the last two that we looked at, Demolisher and Rampage, had very just kind of bland vehicle configurations, but Mixmaster's cement truck looks really nice. It's got this really fantastic color balance to him where nothing is like there's no one huge solid block of color. I mean, you could argue that this dark gray is more prominent throughout, but it's broken up so nicely by the gray for the side view mirrors, the smokestacks, the gas cans, the silver on the wheels, these caution bars here, which they even put a tiny little bit on the little steps here on the fuel canister. It's got this really fantastic looking deep purple for his windshield and his lights. And of course, you can't talk about Mixmaster without talking about this. This cement drum is probably one of the biggest eye-catching pieces, or eye-catching parts rather, on this piece. It's this big striped drum with just an absolutely gigantic Decepticon symbol on it. Oddly, they filled it in here so the stripe actually gets broken up. I mean, I understand why, so that you can actually make out the Decepticon logo in its entirety, but it is kind of strange that these aren't so much stripes as like these T shapes. But still, it's very, very nice. That is a fantastic looking silver, and it complements this dark gray very, very nicely. The beige, it just kind of goes with everything as beige does. The light gray is a very nice contrast to the dark gray for the other parts here. It's just the color on this piece is fantastic all the way around. Except maybe the back. The back is kind of bland, but it's hard for me to be all that upset about it because you're not really going to be looking at it from the back anyway, and it just looks so nice from every other angle. And as with the other Constructicons, this piece has some very interesting molded in details, like handles at the bottom of the door, which actually is like a utilitarian thing for trucks that are this big, where someone's actually going to be opening the door from down here and then climbing into the cab rather than climbing up and then opening the door. There are these steps on the fuel tank that are actually molded for, grip. There are these vents along the smokestacks. You can see a lot of nice molded details in the back leading into the cement drum. All along here, there are these little molded pieces here that are meant to, I believe, in a regular cement truck, these are meant to drop down to give it stability when it's stopped and doing its cement mixer thing. There's even a little bit of detail molded on the inside of the wheel well there. You've got this ladder here, you've got the little funnel bucket thing here, and that all funnels down here to an actual working chute that the cement can go down. And even though the back is boring from a purely color standpoint, there is at least some detail that's been molded in to make it stand out a little bit more. And of course, the same details carry on the other side. And in the front, you can make out the cab lights up there, the side view mirrors here, which actually have both the large ones and the tiny ones that a lot of big trucks have. Some nicely molded wheels, some nice It's the purple lights again. A smaller Decepticon logo on the hood. That seems unnecessary when you've got this giant things, but it still looks nice. It breaks up the hood design a little bit, and you can see there's like a small fade there, almost like they tried to do a similar thing that they did with Demolisher, where they made it sort of fake, made it look a little dirty, which is nice. And the grill itself isn't super fancy, but it's nicely molded, and they have this nice ring of darker detail to help break it up a little bit. But yes, overall, this is just an incredible looking vehicle mode. It's so nice looking that I would almost want to display this piece in this mode, if not for the fact that his robot configuration is even more interesting. And speaking of his robot configuration, I'm going to go into that right now. And here we have Mixmaster, Revenge of the Fallen Mixmaster, specifically, in his robot mode. And this is the payoff. This is where it all comes together. He is definitely my favorite of the Constructicons. He is also definitely one of my favorites of all of the movie pieces that I own, with a couple of exceptions. Like the Human Alliance line is kind of, I don't count Human Alliance because that's like in a whole other league, but he is very cool. Now, interestingly enough, color-wise, while he does get broken up a little bit more with these bits of gray all over the place, and there's it's difficult to see, but he does have a nice sort of metallic purple that mimics the purple that was in his windshield a little bit, kind of. And this odd, almost coppery color, which this is the only place in the entire piece. Well, okay, no, it's one of a handful of places. It's here, and then a couple of the joints have that color in it, but everything else is either gray or purple or dark gray. And it's a little bit weird that they decided to just throw that color in there, but yeah, it is what it is. There is some very nice detail on his arms though. But getting back to the color, his color is broken up a little bit more. It's more like just these, it's like gray, and then darker gray, and then silver, and then purple, and then black, and then purple, and light gray again, and some beige on the outside. So he's definitely not a color blob, but there might be a little too much color variation going on here. Just too many like little points where the color changes. Now, I will say, I have like, the interesting thing about this piece is that he's got so many joints and so many moving parts that there are lots of different ways that people can configure him when he is in robot form. This is the way I like to do it. I like to have these big plates up on top, almost acting like armor. I like having his neck extended a little further, as you can kind of see there, because it's this variable thing where you can have it in there and he can look around a little bit. But I really like pulling that up and extending it forward a little bit so that it gives him more of a sort of like monstrous inhuman hunch. I just like to play that up a little bit more. I also have these panels that were normally the truck cab hood, or top of the truck cab. They're supposedly supposed to be off to the side like this. And I'm not super fond of that. I think it actually works better to tilt them up and have them kind of resting between these two pieces here, almost like foot armor. It makes him a little bit less posable, but I think it kind of brings the look together a little bit more. Really kind of makes him look like this armored monstrosity, which I don't know if that's it's hard to say that that's entirely what they were going for, because he is so open to interpretation, but I think that's how he looks best. Which, of course, it does make critiquing this piece a little bit difficult because there's so much variability, but I'm going to do my best. So anyway, the color distribution is a little bit he doesn't pop color wise as much as he does as a cement truck, but what he lacks in color in standing out in color choices, he more than makes up for in just overall aesthetic. I mean, he's got a really interesting silhouette. He's got these like really long arms, just disproportionately large, and he's got these all sorts of, like I said, variable points where you can really change up what you see and how he's displayed. He's got these chunks of truck sticking off of his arms that, in all honesty, I don't particularly mind because they just kind of, they're off to the side. They're not really bothering anybody. And depending on how you have him posed, they just bulk him up even nicer. You can, though, if you want, because he's, again, so variable, you can swing them up and in, make them a little bit less noticeable. It's really just, it's kind of all up to you, and that is part of what makes talking about him so interesting, is the fact that you can essentially find a way to set him up that you'll like better than others. And I've seen so many different ways that people have transformed him online and in forums and things like that. There are all sorts of fan modes that people have come up with. He's very versatile in that respect. Going into the details, he, of course, has his otherworldly, monstrous, almost bug-like head, which, if we can focus, there we go. The interesting thing about this head, I think, is he actually has almost like a hermit crab kind of face going on there, which is weird considering his cement mixer drum gave him much more of a bee or wasp-like look. And I guess you could say that his face could be slightly wasp-like, but I feel like going back to Rampage seemed more wasp-like than this. This maybe hornet-like, but he seems like more of a hermit crab to me. It kind of goes against the bug theme, but some people think that crabs are just another kind of bug. So it really depends. Most of the detail that gets opened up from his transformation is things like the inside of the legs here. His legs entirely are encased with the truck cab, so you couldn't see any of this detail before. His torso, his face, of course, the insides of his arms, and he's got these really interesting three-fingered hands that have these oddly curved out thumbs. Now, he looks really cool like this. I will say from the back, he's got truck butt, which it doesn't bother me too much. I mean, that had to go somewhere, but it is a little odd looking, although it does sort of tie back into the bug thing, where that does almost look like a was it a thorax of some kind of insect. Now, he does have a third mode, which is a sort of mobile artillery cannon, almost tank-like mode. I am not going to show that here because, much like his robot mode, for one thing, it's highly variable based on what people want to see. But another thing is it's just so needlessly complicated, and I just don't want to do it. But it is there. So he does have a third configuration on top of everything else. And it's okay looking. It shows more of the cement truck than the robot, so you kind of can understand, like, color-wise at least, what you're going to get there. But his robot mode is very cool. Again, not as completely off the wall as Demolisher, not as overly pronounced and bug-like as Rampage, but he is very cool. He's like this giant, buggy, armor-plated gorilla, and he just looks really neat, and he's just so cool. The colors are nice, even if a lot of it's broken up in this mode, but the overall form is what really sells me on it. And it's not, in Demolisher's case, I like the weirdness of his form. In this case, it's not so much weirdness as just flat out coolness. He's typical bipedal robot, but he's just oddly proportioned enough and just oddly segmented enough that he really kind of stands out among a lot of the other Transformers out there. So that has been the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Voyager class Mixmaster. In my opinion, probably the best Mixmaster, but that's beside the point. If you enjoy the video, if you want to see me do more, if you have requests, I'll see what I can get to. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, or any combination of those three. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, art is more than meets the eye.